Hi guys, I'm Mariah Wicker,
Cassie Doyle Wadden.
and today we're talking with you about how to define your perfect home. So when Cassie and I meet with buyers for the first time, we like to meet with them and ask a few questions so that we can get a sense of what exactly their situation is, as well as what does their perfect home look like. So we use the 1 to 10 system. Cassie, do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so whenever clients go to a house, at the end we always ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being never take me here again, 10 being I'm going to die if I don't get this house. Kind of where are they at on that scale? We say anything under 7, probably going to forget about, not really think about doing an offer. But 7 or higher, that's when we kind of start to dig through some of these questions and see, is this a house that you want to put an offer on?
Absolutely. Um, so let's just go through these questions. So this is,
Awesome.
again, the questions that we ask a buyer when we're trying to really get to the meat of what they want in a home, as well as understand their situation and what they want or don't want to do or can and can't do.
Yeah.
So do you have to buy with a certain window of time?
So when you get a pre-approval, they say it's going to be good for 90 days. And really, if you're nothing in your financing changes, it'll probably last you a little bit. But something that you have to think about is what's going to happen in your life. Are interest rates going to go up? Anything like that. So if, your idea is to buy a house that fits your pre-approval amount, just know that sometimes the longer you wait, that pre-approval amount might change due to jobs changing interest rates increasing, anything like that. So if you like your pre-approval and you're finding houses in it that you really like, you might want to make that window of time a little shorter and really try to find the house that you want to buy.
So they have like expiration dates on those pre-approvals. Does that mean anything or?
No, honestly, it's again, they say it's good for 90 days, but let's say we're searching for a house, you find a house 60 days from now, we're going to get an updated pre-approval from the lender and just
Mhm.
make sure that everything is good, current, and you know what you're going to be paying that day.
Yeah. So if nothing's changed in your financial profile, that pre-approval is pretty much good.
Yeah, if nothing's changed, interest rates have stayed around the same, I'd say even if we're outside of that expiration time, you can assume that you're probably going to be around the same
Got it.
pre-approval amount.
What about like if rates change? Let's say, I'm pre-approved today for 600,000 and rates go up by 1%.
Yeah, so they say 1% increase in rates is actually going to equate to about 10% in your purchase power. So if you're
So it
looking at,
drops me down to like 550 or less.
yeah, so say you were looking at 600, yeah, you're probably looking at under 550 at that point.
So that's probably like people over the last couple of years. That house you were looking at 2 years ago that cost 500,000. Now not only can you not afford it because rates have gone up, but 500 looks a lot different.
Yeah, and honestly, I think both of us have clients to this day that, a couple of years ago they were pre-approved exactly at 550. Now we're probably actually looking in the like 450 to 500 range.
Mm-hmm.
The houses are much different and their payments are higher.
Yeah, you could get like 1,500 square foot Cape, maybe with a garage at 550 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And today that's a 1,000 square foot, nicely done ranch
Yeah.
with the yard.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Um, so one of the next things we talk about are you going to be considering new construction?
Yeah, so new construction, and we asked this question, one because it's important to know what your budget is, right? So new
Yeah.
construction, that's usually, unless you're buying new construction at 55 plus, new construction South Shore, you're looking at entry level 800,000.
Yeah.
So if that's your budget, that's great. There's a lot of great things about new construction. Obviously, everything's new. My husband's a sucker for peeling the plastic off of things, so
Yeah.
he is our goal, new construction someday. But we talked about this before we recorded, and there's also some risk to new construction.
Yeah. So there are things that you just don't know about until you're living in the house. Any sort of problems can arise. Your air conditioner might not work. You can have well issues. You can find, cracks in foundation,
It
anything,
might settle.
settlement. Yeah. So it's the good thing is with new construction, you typically get a year warranty that if any of those issues arise, a lot of them are covered through the builder, but still there's so many unknowns. Whereas an existing house, it's been there for X amount of years. Yeah, there might be issues, but you know what those issues are walking into it.
Right. I ask this question a lot of times personally because it's important as a buyer for you to understand that if new construction is not in your budget, what's everything else?
Yeah.
Used.
Used.
So you can't go into the rest of the properties that are on the market, which are resales, expecting things to be up to new construction standard, right? You're buying a used HVAC, you're buying a used foundation, you're buying a used roof. Unless they've, told us that all these things are new, you have to go into kind of a home inspection with that mindset that I'm buying a used item. And obviously, you want the price you pay should reflect it. But you got to keep that in mind. If you're not shopping new construction budget, you really can't expect new construction quality necessarily. Now, what about like if I'm paying rent and I'm not in a rush and I want to wait to buy while I rent?
Yeah, so I know myself and you included, we both rented. I rented for over 5 years at around $2,000 a month. We paid well over $100,000, and not that we had nothing. Like we enjoyed our time in those places, but we have no equity. So when we bought our house in 2022, now we've been paying into it, and we're sitting on 50 to 75K of equity in the last 2 years, where the 5 years before that, we just paid over 100K just to live.
Yeah, sometimes I share the story. A good friend of mine, right out of college, I started renting. She and her husband bought a house, right? My rent and her mortgage were the same. Fast forward 5 years, she sold that home and bought something else, and I was now buying my first home.
Yeah.
She jumped into a forever home. Her mortgage is equal to what my mortgage is, but she's in a forever home just because of that first decision. Just like that board game life, that first decision out of the gate, she's advanced a step in life on like 5 years time, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the equity she had built up immediately versus I was paying someone else's big dream.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, think about it. If, I had that extra $100,000 to put into a new home, yeah, same thing. We'd be probably in a bigger space with, more of the boxes checked rather than, we found a house and it's amazing and that's great. But yeah, we would be in a different situation if we were able to buy 5 years prior.
Now, size of the house.
Yeah.
Right? So, when we talk about like you have to understand there's almost like levers here, like when you're picking on size, location, and condition, the price is obviously going to adjust based on that, for better, for worse. So if price is what's the most important to you, size, location, condition might drop a little bit. Or if size, location, condition are most important to you, the price you're going to expect to pay a little bit more.
Up a little.
One mistake I made when I bought my home, despite having been my own realtor, was not really thinking about what my 3-year, 5-year plan was going to be with my home. I knew in the back of my head we wanted to have kids someday. We purchased our home and we love our home. Almost less than a year later, we found out we're expecting baby number 3.
Yeah.
Think when you make that purchase, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to sell it in 3 years. A lot of people will ask us, like, well, what if I have to sell in 5 years? Well, that's really not what you want to do. You want to buy that home and hold on to it. I'd rather see people spend a little bit more and get something they need now if they can afford it in 3 years or in 5 years.
Yep.
And grow into it versus buy that home. And I always will say this, I hope you love me and I hope I totally wow you when we work together. But I don't want you calling me in 5 years to sell that house.
Yeah.
Right? I want you to call me in 30 years because then you can lose 5% of
exactly.
or whatever. You lose a percentage of your earnings on, the cost of closing on your sale and now making another purchase. And now that forever home also appreciated and has cost more money. So I always say, think about the size you might need for the next couple of years and spend the extra couple $100 a month to get what you're going to need in the future.
Yeah. And I talk to people all the time. I know it's scary. Like, this is one of the biggest investments you make. You want to save as much money as you can, but sometimes investing in your future like that actually is better financially for you. And sometimes it just can't happen. You can afford what you can afford, and then, you know, we try to work our magic to get the best house for you. But if you can afford it and you can kind of make that next step, you know, we're kind of living it. It's like,
Yeah, totally.
wish you made a different decision a few years ago. So
Totally. Location. So, you know, obviously we ask what towns do you want to look in, but like, do you get any deeper when you're working with people on beyond towns?
yeah, so honestly, we try to get as hyper local and really get what you want out of the process. So are there any specific neighborhoods? Do you want to live in a neighborhood? Do you like living on a main street? Which is funny because I was actually just talking to a client and she was like, do people actually answer that? Like, yes, they like a main street. And I'm like, I've actually had multiple because they hate neighbors, but they don't want to live in the sticks. They're like, I just want to be on my busy road and be there. So, you know, your drive time to work, which is so funny. People don't think about that. And like, they don't throw it in Google Maps when there's a house.
Even in the KW app, you can set your work location.
Right there. And then the second, as you're scrolling, you can see your commute time right there. And then, your drive time to daily living. Really, it's not just about the house and how it fits for your family, but it's your entire life and how is that house going to fit in your life?
Sometimes with these last two questions, what I've talked to people about is, you know, especially if we work in the South Shore, a lot of people will come to us and say, well, I don't want to live any further than whatever the new exits are, old exit 5, right? So they don't want to be past like almost like the Manomet area. And I'll say to them, you know, like, but if you just go like a little, maybe 5 minutes further, you're going to get the exact house that you want for a better price, right? Yeah. Sometimes those prices are just a little bit outside of that daily drive time to work. And like, well, I want to be, you know, up closer to the city, but I'll ask them, you know, how long does it take you to go get a pizza on a Friday night on Route 18, right? Like, you're in traffic central. So again, preference. Personally, I'd rather get the house I want and maybe concede a little bit on my drive time to work every day, but I also drive for work. So. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. And some people are the opposite, you know, they're like, hey, I don't care about that. Yeah. I don't care about the house or, you know, the house. I just want to make sure my, you know, daily commute time isn't bad. And definitely. It's whatever works for you.
Yeah. What about like the details of the house themselves?
That is honestly one of the most important, right? Really trying to figure out what your client loves. And it's the first like couple weeks of showings and seeing people's faces kind of walking through the house, whether it's a good reaction to something or I can tell immediately that they don't like it. So some of the details is, you know, what kind of yard space do you want? Do you have pets? Are you looking for a fence? You know, do you need a basement? I know you looking into storage in your house.
In my painful storage story.
Yeah.
I was committed to keeping my monthly payment under $3,000 a month when we bought our home, and I could check that box at the end of the day. We pay $2,800 a month for our house. Once we moved in, I've always been, you know, an only child to a single mom, so my sense of space was enough. Now as a family of 5, we really need some extra storage space. So we have a storage locker that I pay $200 a month for.
Yeah.
So now I'm at that $3,000 a month number. And when I look back on what sold for $200 more a month, that would have equaled to like a 525 house. Like, I could have spent another like 50 to 70K on a house if I had thought a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
You know, and not been so close up. Just for the record, I love my house. Okay, yes. I love my house. Neighborhood was number 1 on my list. I'm obsessed with my neighbors. We're in a great location. Do I need a bigger house? Yes, I
do. Yeah. And then, you know, turnkey maintenance. It's, again, we talked earlier with the new construction, getting an existing home. There might be things in the house that you're going to have to work on throughout your year. So, you know, for us, we didn't have a lot of money down, and we knew we were pretty much spending our entire life savings to buy our house. So something high on our list was finding something that had big systems that were newer. So our house had a new roof, a new heating system, new electrical and plumbing. So that was important to us. Even though the house was smaller, the space like wasn't ideal, we knew we could make it into that eventually, but those big stuff we don't have to pay now, and that's good while we recoup our savings.
Yeah. And similar, condition, but very different, right? Like what you just described are all like how the house works and functions and what you need to have like every day. Something else, interior design. Like, is it updated? Is it modern? Is it what you need? That's a cosmetic thing. Most people are willing to concede on that, but we see a lot of people fall into the trap of a well-staged home.
Yeah. So yeah, it's everyone wants to go there, and you're spending a lot of money. You don't want to have to put a lot of money into it. But we really look at the bones of it, especially when we're going in a house with our buyers. Like, they're looking at the oohs and ahs and how pretty it is. And we're really looking at, like, what does the structure look like? What do the systems look like?
What about like this one for me is a huge one too. And it kind of like, again, I've talked about how like I live in a small house, and I kind of have like a complex. I love planning parties, setting up parties, cooking for parties. When the actual party comes, I kind of want to go like hide in another room for the rest of the party.
Yep.
Because I can't stand things being put out of place and messes being made.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the idea of throwing a big party and having a big Christmas and all that. So your ability to entertain, are you the hostess with the mostest? And are you buying a property that's going to allow you to do something you love? I love doing those things. So sometimes I'll get frustrated sometimes because I want to be the person that's hosting a big Thanksgiving dinner or whatever it is, and I don't necessarily have that ability to right now. So think about that. Is it going to mess you up? Like, is it going to eat you up when the holidays come and you can't be the person that hosts?
Yeah, and that leads into the next one is, if you can't have it now, like if your budget is what it is, do you have the ability to expand? So again, like my house, again, 1,000 square foot ranch, small, but we are currently building an in-law for my mom, who's going to have this awesome wide open, kitchen living space that is going to be perfect for entertaining. So I'm the same. I want to have all the parties and stuff. It just doesn't make sense at our house. But now we have that ability to expand. We got a property that easily allowed for it to happen. And hopefully this upcoming, Christmas and Thanksgiving season, we'll be able to.
Coming to your house?
Yes, coming to my house.
And on that too, when you're determining this, when you're going to look at a house, you definitely want to go check with the town. You don't want, and I'll hear it sometimes. I'll be hosting open houses, or I'll be walking through a property with my own clients, and I'll hear someone else say, "Oh yeah, you could definitely throw a pool in the backyard." Like, be really careful about what the listing agent tells you can do at the open house, or even with your own agent has told you. Like, the only person that can actually say that with absolute certainty is the town.
Yeah.
And every town is different.
Yeah, and I know, like, we also like try to check in with the town ourselves, but especially when it comes to something that is so important with your own house, I know I say to all my clients, I'm like, listen, I will do all the legwork for you, but when it comes to like verifying stuff, I will always be like, make one more final call yourself, just to like talk and really understand it. Because even I know somebody that really wanted to take down a whole bunch of trees and put a fence in. And then at the offer position, as we were putting in the offer, we followed up with the town. They couldn't touch the trees because it was in conservation land.
Right.
So they were like, you know what? If we can't cut down those trees, then this backyard isn't for us. And we ended up moving on.
And you want to, like, if that's in your mind when you're buying that home, you better do it right away after you close.
Yeah, that's
because it could change in 5 years or 2 years or whatever. Fencing, I mean, for me, that's not pretty affordable to put up a fence. But for someone that they, like you said, they might be at the absolute max of their budget, dumped everything out. But if you need a fence tomorrow, buy a house with a fence.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's pretty much our list. So this is how Cassie and I will meet with clients, ask them all these important questions, so that, again, on a cellular level, we have put ourselves in our client's shoes and understand what they need and what they want.
Yep. So. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.